Check that out in a second. Good evening, everybody. I'm Seagold, and welcome back to Horror Survivor Livestream. Tonight, I'll be playing some more RuneScape. I'm trying to remember where I left off. I just got the staff and all that, unlocked the fairy rings. I'm not doing the Shield of Arab, even though I really fucking need to just get it out of the way. So we got Twilight's Promised, and then I gotta figure out. I got the Dwarven Cannon set up and everything, and I gotta go, figure out where to use it at properly and all that. So, let's get some stamina potions. Got some higher level folks. Alright. Give me 1 second. Let me check on some other stuff. Oh, and then we'll switch over and do a listen to some Graham Hancock on his most recent podcast. Just a second. That's a little bit better. Let me slide that bitch on off the screen a little bit. Yeah, it'll work. I like that better. Alright. There we go. That's good. That's good. Alright, so let's do some shit. I need me some stamina potions and hopefully I got everything else I need. There we go. That should work. Alright, grab the stamina potions. Oh, I got nothing else good over here.
Stop the war for a while, just to hear you speak, to hear your dreams. The lights turned off and we just held each other close, closer.
Alright. Stop that music. Alright, so we're listening to
an extraordinary sight. It's a very sophisticated archaeology solved. Antarctica.
But everyone agrees that humans are 315,000
Yes,
years old.
That's a good
at
place to
present.
leave it.
When I started on this quest back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was felt that anatomically modern human beings had not existed
Let's
for
fucking
more
get
than
it.
50,000 years. Very recent, really. But this turned out to be complete rubbish because anatomically modern humans are much older than 50,000 years ago. We have 196,000-year-old anatomically modern human remains from Ethiopia. And then finally, 315,000 years ago, a recent find in Jebel Irhoud in Morocco. Again, anatomically modern humans. So we can say that if we define ourselves by our anatomy, brain size, capacity of the skull, if we define ourselves in those ways, we've been around for at least 315,000 years and probably much longer. That's just an accident of discovery. And that's one of the things that puzzles me. If we're anatomically modern, if we've got all the modern kit, if we've got the same brains, we've got the same neurology, everything is there, why do we wait more than 300,000 years to establish something recognizable as a human civilization? Why do we wait so long? We got all the kit. There's evidence that our ancestors were aware of agriculture, just chose not to use it much earlier than that. The complex of events that leads to a city-based civilization, which is the kind of civilization we have now all over the world, that you can only really trace that back to 6,000 years ago. Yes, you can say that before 6,000 years ago, there was build-up to what became the high civilizations.
That's how it works. All right,
But
sweet.
my question is, why not much earlier? Why did we wait until that moment? And I don't find a satisfactory answer to that question, except perhaps we didn't wait. Perhaps we're missing part of our story. And when I say a lost civilization, I do not mean a civilization like ours. I do not mean an industrial civilization. I don't mean they had cell phones or flew to the moon or any of that bullshit. I think they were very different civilization from ours, but they had conquered a number of people.
Okay, it works perfect. All right. So, for those of y'all that don't know, this motherfucker is they call him crazy, like a pseudoscientist or whatever. He's an archaeologist, and he sorry, I didn't realize that bitch is still over there, getting an echo. All right, so I want to say he has a theory that there was an ancient civilization prior to like us. I guess it's probably like the easiest way to explain it. Motherfuckers that don't have any like current understanding of what the fuck's going on. So I mean, my current belief, and according to like like our oldest historical texts, like the Bible and he talks about shit. There's so many stories where they talk about the ancient flood, and I mean you can go back and look at ice cores and fucking there's other ways they've studied it across the world or have it proven across the world that this shit happened. And I believe in order for us to exist now, there had to have been like a civilization and a group of people large enough, a civilization large enough and technological enough with enough intelligence to withstand and shit. You know what I mean? And enough people. You know, because there has to be some lucky motherfuckers. You can't just have everybody go underground. There had to have been some lucky people on the surface too. So I think that's what happened. I think that's why it's like everything's kind of confusing with this UFO thing or whatever, because some of it's them, the ancients. I mean, when you look at the declassified fucking CIA files, there's remote viewing sessions about like them going back to Mars a million years ago, and there being a civilization, a giant fucking pale, blonde, blue-eyed fucking like aliens that lived in pyramids and shit. It's a whole fucking thing. I'd have to pull up the fucking actual document to fucking explain it to y'all. Alright, what the fuck am I doing? Where am I going? Alright. I get all sidetracked. Easily. Sometimes. There we go. We got it working. Yeah, back to
Weeks.
pop here.
And one of those peaks was navigation and ocean seafaring, hence the survival of maps, which show the world as it looked during the Ice Age. And another was astronomy. And another really important breakthrough evidenced by the ancient maps,
Where the
particularly
fuck
a
is this
category of
even
maps
at?
called the Portolanos, is accurate relative longitudes. This is the Orontius Phineas map. It shows Antarctica right there. This is interesting because this map was drawn in 1531. The problem is that our civilization didn't discover Antarctica until 1820. So its appearance on a map drawn in 1521, particularly when we know that the map was based on older source maps, and the map maker tells us in his own legend that he has uncovered material previously hidden in darkness. When we find that, we have to begin to wonder what is going on here. Had somebody found Antarctica long before we did, and mapped it with extremely accurate relative longitudes? And that's important because our civilization didn't crack the longitude problem until the mid-18th century.
There's a whole lot of shit about that too. Like whole lot of just weird shit like that from like an ancient, possible ancient civilization, shit like that. Like they found like whole hammers and shit like that buried in coal seams, drill bits, stuff like that. So, and I mean we're like 300,000 years old, 350. It's like the oldest one they found so far of us, and that's what they're saying in here. I mean, I think they found one that was a little older. Am I supposed to be talking to homie here? What you got for me? Oh, run up on me, give me a spinach roll, yo? Fucking want that.
What that meant was that if you're on a vessel sailing west or east, you might be 300 miles closer to a coastline than you think you are. And suddenly you're on it in the night and you're dead. Once you've got longitude work out, you know exactly where you are. We didn't get that until 1750s, 1760s, thereabouts with Harrison's chronometer. So finding good longitudes on very ancient maps is another puzzle that I don't think archaeologists solved.
So you think there could have been a civilization 20,000 years ago, which was before this young Dryas moment, where, I've got this photo here, which I'll throw up on the screen.
Yeah.
I think you say is evidence that something took place.
It is. That's the Younger Dryas boundary. And I'm with Alan West, who's one of the scientists from the Comet Research Group who are working on the Younger Dryas hypothesis. And our hands are on that black stripe running through the middle of the draw. And that is soot. That is evidence of...
That's the flood mark right there. No, is that the soot?
Wildfires burning. It's full of nanodiamonds, tiny little diamonds, microscopic size, which are a classic product of comet impacts. Microspherules, some platinum, some iridium, all signatures of a cometary impact. And there it is. It's about 5 inches thick. That layer is the Younger Dryas boundary layer. It dates to 12,800 years ago.
So for anyone that can't see, it's just like a slice of earth and there's this black line going through the earth.
We're in a draw.
That 12,800 years ago date, too, that ends up being like a thing. Like an ongoing thing, or 12,000, or 12,500. That's... all the shit happened, like around that time frame. Where the fuck am I going? Sweet, I need to fucking up my prayer anyway, since nobody's online but my one homie, and my one homie's in a high skill like area or something. Iron Man world or some shit.
Or here, where a river has cut a channel and it's exposed the sides of the channel, and on the sides of the channel we can see this black stripe running through, and that is precisely the Younger Dryas boundary.
And the current hypothesis is, from a lot of archaeologists, is there wasn't a human civilization before this point 12,000 years ago. Correct. But you believe there's strong evidence that there could have been?
Yes.
So civilization then, in your definition of the word, how do you define that? A group of people gathering and working together?
Fundamentally, it involves the willing organization or the unwilling organization of labor. If you look at a site like...
I think this ancient civilization had a different type of tech than we have. Like, how everything's based around like oil and like we get plastic and fucking cars all run on oil, we use it to heat our house and shit like that, cook with it, all that. I think they had something else. And I mean, when you look at like Nikola Tesla and his works, it's all fucking vibration and frequency. So I don't know. I'm not a physicist, don't know enough about it, but there's something there. There is for damn sure something there. They don't teach us a lot of important shit in school or anything. They don't want us getting ideas. And anytime like someone uses those kind of things or like electrolysis or something like that to make their car run on water, they end up not breathing or whatever for whatever reason. So I think the last dude was like they poisoned me before he dropped dead. It's like, yeah, I believe it.
Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, we have it on our timeline here somewhere. It's 11,600 years old. This is really an
Oh, this shit's wild too. Yeah.
extraordinary site. It's a very sophisticated site. It's very large. It consists of large T-shaped megaliths that can weigh up to 20 tons. There are precise astronomical.
I'm fairly certain this place was a library at one point. I think that these pillars told the story of something important, something we were supposed to remember. That's why they buried it. Because why the fuck else do you bury something if not to preserve it? And if they, were a civilization similar to ours, then it means that they probably had dug in the dirt, learned about the civilization prior to them, and it would assume that we would do the same. So, but what the fuck ever. Anyway, what the fuck am I doing with this little fucking pit? Pop, go. Pop, come back.
Alignments in it. This was not done by 2 or 3 people working together. This was, that's the Göbekli Tepe today, covered by a modern canopy to keep, fair enough, to keep the weather off it, because it was previously deliberately buried by its builders. But of course, there's much more around. Hundreds and hundreds more pillars are still underground. We know they're there because of ground-penetrating radar, but they've not been excavated yet. So this was a major project. And interestingly, the people who built Göbekli Tepe, at the time Göbekli Tepe began, there was no agriculture happening there. They were all hunter-gatherers. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, they did something that archaeologists used to say hunter-gatherers couldn't do. They organized themselves. They made a huge project, they implemented it, and they delivered it, and Göbekli Tepe is not alone. It's one of dozens of sites like that all over Anatolia in Turkey. This was a highly organized, sophisticated hunter-gatherer civilization that was involved in making this place.
I'm a little bit confused. So if the Ice Age ended 11,700 years ago,
yeah,
and Göbekli Tepe is 11,600 years ago,
mm-hmm.
That means there's a 100-year gap between the end of the Ice Age and something as sophisticated as Göbekli Tepe.
Not exactly,
no?
because dates in this frame, they're not spot-on accurate dates. Some will say the Ice Age ended 11,600. Some will say it ended 11,700 years ago. But the fact is that in this window, the world was warming up again. It was getting better. And that's when this project was created. And the mystery for archaeologists anyway, is that it was hunter-gatherers. And archaeologists are now having to come to terms with that. You see, the idea was you had to have an agricultural community first in order to create projects like this, because that allows people to become specialists. If you generate a food surplus that you can rely on, then you can take people with certain skills and say, focus on that, become an astronomer, become an architect, become an engineer, and we'll support you in doing that. That was the idea, and that was why it was felt that something like Göbekli Tepe couldn't be built until about 6,000 years ago, when there was widespread agriculture. But that turned out not to be true. It was built by hunter-gatherers, but within 1,000 years of it being built, agriculture becomes present in that whole area. Origins of agriculture are definitely earlier than we've been taught.
So it's funny because I don't know a lot about the Ice Age, but humans survived the Ice Age.
Oh God, yes, we did. It's just.
I mean, we kind of wouldn't be here if we didn't survive the Ice Age. That's like the thing people aren't like quite understanding. Like, these things happened, and our ancestors had to have been like there had to have been enough of them, and they had to win the motherfucking luck lottery like a motherfucker, like rolled a straight nat 20 on that shit in order for us to be here. Like, we should all be thankful as fuck. It's an amazing time to be alive, but like, the people that are running like our lives and everything just are keeping us completely enslaved and locked away from all like the important shit. Like right now it's family, you know, our kids, and, you know, nature, all that types of shit. But yeah, we're kind of cooked, extra crisply crackly style.
Where do you want to be during an ice age? That's the question.
What are my options?
If you were around.
Oh, there's fucking ruins where these motherfuckers went to too. It was either during this or like for the flood or whatever. But they went underground for whatever reason. They're going underground again now. I think it's called Darankuyu. I think there's shit built. I think that's in Turkey too. There's like 2 or 3 sites over there. They all like 2 of them connect to each other or something. There's underground like shit here in the U.S. too. But they don't say much about it. I think out in like the like Arizona desert or something like that. I'd have to like Google the shit. So I'm not lying to y'all about the exact
Rational
specifics.
being, which most human beings are.
But I ain't doing that right now.
You would immediately exclude Northern Europe. Absolutely no point in being in that frozen, miserable wilderness. You'd immediately exclude the northern part of North America too. No point in being there. It's just horrible at that time. Siberia, pretty rough. No, you'd look for the tropics. You'd go down close to the equator. You'd go to the places that weren't affected by the Ice Age, that were actually the best real estate on Earth. That's where you'd go. That's why if we are looking for a missing...
The Amazon. That's what he's going to say. The Amazon, right around that area. Probably underwater that area too.
In the human story, we're wasting our time looking for it in Northern Europe or North America. We should be looking for it in Mexico. We should be looking for it in India. We should be looking for it in Indonesia. We should be looking for it around Papua New Guinea.
All those are pretty much countries that have almost been purposely kept third world shitholes for cheap fucking slave labor.
All of these areas that were really great places to live during the Ice Age. That's the kind of place that the sort of civilization I'm talking about could have thrived.
What is the difference? You know, because on here it says the earliest known humans were 300,000 odd years ago.
Yeah.
What is the difference between these humans 300,000 years ago and the civilization you're describing 20,000 years ago that you believe existed?
Apart from what is perhaps wrongly described as a slight refinement in human features, natural selection operating on what humans perceive as beauty, I don't know, but otherwise the same.
The same?
The same, yeah. And again, that's not disputed. Nobody's saying that Jebel Irhoud human beings were somehow different from us. They're anatomically modern humans.
But how did they live versus your definition of a civilization?
They lived a simple hunter-gatherer life.
Okay, in small groups.
Yeah, but somehow, around 11,600 years ago.
I think like the natives in North America probably had the right idea with like how to live socially, except for like the wanting to kill each other over territory, which that might not even have been an actual thing. That might just been what they told to us, you know what I mean, the history books. But because you can't believe none of the shit these people fucking say to us. Almost everything has either been, you know, proven to be untrue, or, you know, what might not have been a lie on purpose. They just got a fact wrong, but a lot of it's just an outright fucking lie.
People started accumulating monuments that can only be made with large groups and organized labor. You have to have a system. You have to have a plan. You can't build something like Göbekli Tepe without planning it out in advance. You've got to draw it out somehow. There has to be a plan. It's not something you just wing. So there's a missing background to all of that, which bothers me.
And again, so most people think civilization started, what, 6,000 years ago?
Yes, that would be when civilizations become archaeologically visible. So you have ancient Sumer, Mesopotamia, which roughly 3,500, I'm going to use BC because everybody's familiar with that. Roughly 3,500 BC, which is 5,500 years ago, approximately, we start seeing cities. being built. We start seeing the beginnings of writing taking place round about the same time. The same thing is happening in Egypt. Maybe a couple of hundred years later, but the new work that's being done in Egypt is pushing Egypt much closer to Sumer, narrowing that window. Effectively, you can say that these two civilizations become archaeologically visible at the same time. And they're not alone, because on the other side of the world, in Peru, there's a civilization now recognized called the Caral Supe civilization, which built pyramids, which also goes back 5,500 years. And this is one of the mysteries I'm looking at now, is why we have these apparently coincidental emergence of high civilizations in the same window all around the world. Indus Valley civilization, roughly the same, 5,000 years old. Yeah, we're looking at Caral here, I think. Yeah. And these classic, the feature is these circular plazas in front of them, and then the pyramid with a, these were not expected in Peru. When archaeologists think of Peru, they tend to think of Machu Picchu, the Inca civilization. That's what gets all the coverage.
And that's 600 years ago.
That's 600 years ago. That's yesterday. Whereas these Caral Supe pyramids, Caral, Aspero, Banduria, Penico, these ones are much older, thousands of years older. They're extremely sophisticated. They built with an earthquake-proof technology. They, instead of using blocks, they put small stones in textile bags, and those allow a certain amount of shifting so the thing doesn't collapse in an earthquake. And this is 5,500 years old, getting on. So again, not an agricultural civilization at that time. They're a hunter-gatherer civilization. So archaeologists are having to confront a reversal of their model at the moment. And I think there's room in that reversal of the model for a forgotten episode in the human story.
Tell me about this forgotten episode in the human story.
Yeah, it's remembered all around the world as a golden age, where there was no violence, no cruelty, where great healers and sages were at work, where powers that are scorned in our society today, such as telepathy and telekinesis, which are regarded as completely non-existent by our scientists, were regarded as a matter of fact of life in this ancient world. That's a civilization that emerged out of shamanism and made something good. But then, if you follow the myths further, as I've done, you find something odd happens. You find that they've stepped away from the original purity, that they've become a culture that begins to impose its power on others around the world. And that's always given as the reason for the cataclysm in the myths, that we angered the gods. It might have been with our noise, it might have been with our irreverence. We angered the gods and they sent a flood. They weren't happy with their creation. They wanted to start again, wipe the slate clean. And so there's always this feeling in the myths, and I can't explain it. I don't know what it comes from, but it's always there, is that in some way we ourselves brought this upon ourselves.
Is this those people not understanding the forces of Mother Nature and trying to sort of justify it as
or perhaps a deeper understanding of the forces of Mother Nature?
Maybe.
Perhaps the way that human beings are operating in the world today should be included amongst the forces of nature. We are a geological force. And worse than that, we're a psychic force, which is full of anger and hatred and suspicion and mutual destruction. That's not going to be good for nature. That's going to be disturbing. We're an integrated system, in my view. We're not separate. Human beings are part of all of this, and what we do affects all of that. And that's what the ancient myths seem to testify to. So, if I may finish on that, when I look at our civilization today, I don't want to go off on a rant, but when I look at our civilization today, I see a civilization that ticks all the mythological boxes, every single one, for the next lost civilization. And I envisage a situation 10 or 15,000 years from now when we will be a myth, a fantasy, that our ancestors actually could speak to one another on opposite sides of the planet, that our ancestors, they could fly to the moon, You know, they could go to the depths of the ocean. The archaeologists of that time will say, complete fantasy, just made up, never happened. But it did. We're that lost civilization. And we don't need a comet, and we don't need solar activity. Because of we're so psychically messed up as a species, we'll probably end up doing it to ourselves. That's what nuclear weapons are about. Mass species suicide. And the mental processes that drive that. Very dangerous, very effective of the world we live in. Hatred is a psychic force, and the way it's being generated around the world at the moment and mobilized and focused is it's got to be bad for all of us.
Especially when we have such powers to self-destruct.
Oh, it's terrible.
I don't think the ancient ones or the aliens or whoever they are, I mean, whatever label you give the motherfucking people, I don't think they'll let them use nukes. Like, you know, I don't like air to surface nukes, like what they said they did to Japan or whatever, for example. I don't think that happened. I think that was a thermonuclear bomb or thermobaric bomb or something like that. It was non-nuclear, but still has a mushroom cloud, still sets the fucking, you know, the countryside ablaze, and everything was wood then. Like, how would they know? Plus, I also know that they coordinated with Japan on the attack of Pearl Harbor, so like, why would they not also coordinate that whole propaganda campaign? Where the fuck am I supposed to be going? Oh, the bank, that's right.
This is what drives me nuts, is looking at the low consciousness level of the so-called leaders on this planet. When I look around the whole bunch of them, I just see very low consciousness individuals who define everything in material terms, who are focused on. This also gets me into trouble, but I think nationalism is something that humanity needs to grow out of. We need to grow out of nationalism. It's just an extension of tribalism. We need to grow out of it soon. And let me be clear, I am not talking about world government. I don't want anything like, I don't want any government. I'm an anarchist, basically. And that's what anarchy means. It means without government. I don't want any government at all. But we have to get past this notion that by accident, I was born with this particular skin, you know. The notion is that these accidents of birth define us, that we must somehow massively respect and love people who look like us and kind of hate and fear people who don't look like us. We have to get past that. We have to get past that as a species. It's really important. All human beings everywhere, all the same fundamentally. Of course, we're vastly diverse. We have incredible different gifts. I value and appreciate the differences in different cultures all around the world. This is wonderful, but it doesn't have to come with, and we are better than you, and we're going to kill you because you don't share our ideas. This is insane.
It's
crazy.
it's wild that that's where it goes
we're
too.
a childish species, and leading our species are leaders who have the mentality of deranged teenagers.
We elected them.
Yeah, we did, very unfortunately, which shows how easy it is to manipulate.
I don't think we elected these motherfuckers. I think they just want us to think, you know, we did or whatever. Like, they just have to have us think that enough people would have wanted them elected. That's all they got to do is push the idea of
it. The narrative in the world today. Today, who wins in elections isn't the best person, isn't the good person, isn't the person who's going to do good. It's the best communicator who wins.
So this ancient civilization that we could have theoretically forgotten, you were somewhat implying that maybe they were right, that their own actions caused the Great Flood, as they say. They talk about it in mythology.
Well, I floated that notion, yeah. Yeah, they might have been. But it's enough to say that that's what they believed, because that's what all the myths say. The Noah story is prefigured in ancient Sumer with an almost identical flood myth. The gods are angry. A great flood is going to be sent. The intention is to wipe out humanity, but this god, who's called Enki, says to Atrahasis, I'm going to save you. Build a boat. Build it now, a big one. Put into it the seeds of all things that you will need. Bring each animal of every kind into your boat. This is a kind of survival arc, which is exactly the same as Noah. Noah's Ark is just copied on that. It's just borrowed from that.
And to people that say, well, these are just stories, these are fictions that someone wrote and then they passed them down, and there's no truth in these things at all.
They're welcome to say that. I just happen to think they're not, and my job has been to make that case. I do not claim that I have proved there was a lost civilization. Any archaeologist who says Hancock claims he's proved that is lying. I don't claim that. I claim I'm puzzled and mystified, and I'm gonna complete that journey as long as I can. I'm going to carry on investigating and looking into all aspects of this, because that's what I'm here to do.
And that lost civilization, you said they were seafaring, potentially.
Seafaring, yeah.
Which means they had boats?
Yeah. So we know, for example, that anatomically modern human beings reached Australia 60,000 years ago. Those involved significant sea journeys. They reached Cyprus in the Mediterranean 14,000 years ago. Again, they involved sea journeys, not engine boats, not metal boats. You can do it on quite simple craft. Look at the Polynesians. Look at the vast distances that they explored on outrigger canoes. So yeah, boats, but not our kind of boats.
I just don't understand how, if they're traveling the seas in boats, how they aren't classified as a civilization.
Well, because according to the mainstream model, which I am trying to provide an alternative to, they never existed. There was no such people. They never did these things. The maps are just coincidences, irrelevance. It's just odd. They put Antarctica, they put a land mass in Antarctica because they felt it would balance the world. That's the theory that's given. And it's just, to me, it's not satisfactory. It just doesn't add up. These things need to be explained. And it's why in every society which wishes to make progress, mavericks, people who go against the grain, no matter how much shit they have to take, are needed. They're needed in our society to provide a balance to this overwhelming mass that science now occupies. Science has now come to occupy the space that religion occupied in many people's minds. And again, I need to emphasize, I'm not against science. Science is about to save my life. I have major heart surgery coming up in 2 weeks' time. I'm not against it at all, but I think it should be one weapon in our armory, not the only weapon.
There should be a button just down below here. And if it says subscribed, you're already subscribed. If it says subscriber, that means you're not yet. And if you're not subscribed,
were involved. The thing is to make, because the biggest danger was the other people. Once you're up 2 or 3 courses, you fall, you're dead. It's a 52-degree slope. There's no way you're going to stop. You're going to come down, and still every year people die on the Great Pyramid. That's why they've made it illegal to climb it now. So there's that. Then there's the almost perfect alignment of the Great Pyramid to true north, not to compass north, which is about 10 or 11 degrees off true north, but to astronomical north, real north. The Great Pyramid is aligned within 3/60ths of a single degree. I put it that way because degrees are divided into 60 minutes, so 3 minutes of arc. The Great Pyramid is aligned to that level of precision, 3/60ths of a single degree to true north. And they've done that on a 6 million ton monument, which is 481 feet high, if you take account of its original height, which has a 52-degree slope, which is filled with internal corridors and spaces, grand gallery, the ascending, the descending corridors. All of this is extremely difficult to do. It's not impossible to do because we see it there. Could our civilization do it? Yeah, I think we could. But would we do it? No, I don't think we would. The motive wouldn't be there. People say, why? I mean, why do you want to align it perfectly to true north? It's enough to ask me to build a 6 million ton monument, but you want it aligned to true north as well? Come on. I mean, that's a really difficult specification. We'd find that hard. A kind of artistry was put to work on the Great Pyramid as well as skill. Let's get rid of any notion that slaves were involved. They were not. There wasn't slavery in the Old Kingdom anyway, but this is a work of love.
Yeah, I got
from the first
nothing
to the
I can do
last
right now.
stone. It's a work done with great skill and care. It's a beautiful and extraordinary thing, both inside and out. It sits almost exactly on latitude 30, which is 1/3 of the way between the North Pole and the equator. And it incorporates the dimensions of the Earth on a scale of 1 to 43,200 in its own dimensions. So if you take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, I'll explain why that number matters. Multiply it by that number, you get the polar radius of the Earth. Measure the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid, multiply it by the same factor, 43,200, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Archaeologists know this. They say it's a coincidence, total coincidence, just by chance. However, I could agree with them, actually, if the scale was not 1 to 43,200. But the fact that it's 1 to 43,200 changes everything, because that belongs to a sequence of numbers that is found in ancient mythology all around the world. And those numbers are all multiples of the number 72. And I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion the book by the great historian of science, Giorgio de Santillana, professor of the history of science at MIT. He was the first to identify that these numbers and the imagery that go with them derive from a phenomenon called the precession of the equinoxes. I better explain that a little bit. The precession of the equinoxes. Everybody's heard the song, "We Live in the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius." I'm sure you've heard that.
No comment.
We live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. That's astrology. At the moment, and for the last 2,000 years, on the spring equinox, the sun has risen against the background of the constellation of Pisces. That's the age of Pisces. We live in the age of Pisces. It's not an accident that the early Christians used the fish as their symbol. The next constellation on the zodiac, when you go backwards around it, is Aquarius. And the precession is actually caused by a wobble on the axis of the Earth. I'm going to pretend that this is the Earth.
Okay.
And instead of just doing this, while it's doing that, it's also doing that. It's wobbling. And that affects the rising time and season at which particular stars rise. It affects two things noticeably. One thing it affects is the pole star. At the moment, the pole star is Polaris. The pole star, this is astronomical north. It's the star towards which the extended north pole of the Earth points most directly.
Okay.
At present, it's Polaris. It hasn't always been Polaris. 4,000 years ago, it was Thuban in the constellation of Draco. That's because the Earth's axis is doing this. At the horizon, it does the same thing with the zodiacal constellations. We shift gradually through each constellation, lasts about 2,000 years in each constellation. The great year where we come back to square one is just under 26,000 years. 25,920 years is the convention that's applied in ancient mythology. So the fact that one of those numbers is the scale used to encode the dimensions of the Earth in the Great Pyramid cannot be accidental, in my view. It's a deliberate choice. If it was 1 to 57,000, I wouldn't pay attention to it. If it was 1 to 21,000, I wouldn't pay attention to it. But 1 to 43,200, that's the number of syllables in the Rig Veda, for example. You find this all over the world, everywhere.
So what does that imply or suggest?
What it suggests is that incorporated into the building of the Great Pyramid was knowledge that was not supposed to have existed 4,500 years ago. In fact, knowledge that was not supposed to have existed until 2,000 years ago. Hipparchus of Alexandria is the Greek who was supposed to have discovered precession, but the incorporation of precession in the structure of the Great Pyramid says to me that that knowledge is much older. It was already old then.
I really want to make sure I'm clear on this precession thing because I'm not super clear.
Yeah.
What does it mean, precession? It means that there's a certain star pattern that we see once every 20,000 years.
It precesses. It goes backwards.
Okay.
The direction through the zodiac is forwards in the normal year, but in the long-term year, because of the wobble, the sun rises against the background of the spring equinox. The sun rises perfectly due east. It always does. It also rises perfectly due east on the autumn equinox. On the summer solstice, the sun rises in the northern hemisphere north of east. and south of east on the winter solstice. The key moment for the ancients was the equinox. It was considered to define the character of the year, and what defined it was the constellation that housed the sun, that was the house of the sun.
Okay, so the star pattern.
Yeah,
Right.
a zodiacal constellation. The constellations of the zodiac lie along what is called the ecliptic, the path of the sun.
Okay.
Okay, the Earth, the Moon, we're all on the ecliptic, within a few degrees above or below it. And therefore, these are constellations that we can see the sun against the background of.
Mm-hmm.
Constellation like Orion, you'll never see the sun against the background of it. You're only going to see it against the background of the zodiacal constellations that lie on the so-called path of the sun. And those are the 12 familiar constellations of the zodiac. And as I say, we're living in the age of Pisces right now. And according to ancient astrology, we're going to be making the transition into Aquarius within about the next 150 years. The sun will have left Pisces and will be rising in Aquarius. So actually the song is true. We do live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The only question is whether that means anything or not. The ancients thought it did. We think it doesn't. I'm not sure who's right.
So I'm going to repeat this back to you to check if I've got it correctly, but I suspect I might not have. Within the design of the pyramids, there was a number, which you said was 43,200.
It's a scale.
It's a scale.
It's a scale that's used for the height and the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid. Base perimeter, measure 4 sides, add it together, height, the actual height of the Great Pyramid. It's true original.
All right, folks, I can't do it. I can't do it tonight. It's too late. I'm gonna have to come back in tomorrow and play this motherfucker earlier in the day. So I'm falling asleep. So I'll get up with y'all tomorrow. I promise y'all I will do better. Play for longer. Sorry, I'm tired. Please hit that subscribe button for me and the like button too. And I appreciate you guys watching. And remember, don't trust your government. These corporations don't give a fuck about us. Nothing's going to change unless we do something about it. See y'all later.